Today we will be showing you how to install a 12 by 16 vinyl traditional pavilion. However, they are also available on these sizes listed on your screen. The tools and accessories that are required in order for you to complete your installation will be laid out in your manual. Make sure to review those so that you have everything you need in order to complete the installation. Once you have located all the tools required in order to complete the installation, make sure that you are following all the local guidelines and regulations in order to complete the installation safely. You can start by unpacking the kit that we will provide for you. Make sure to locate all the necessary items in order to complete the installation. If for whatever reason there are any missing pieces, please contact us at the number listed on your screen. Now that you have located all of the items, we can start with post assembly. We recommend attaching your structure directly to a concrete pad or footers. Mark off the desired location for the structure placement that fits your outdoor area using the footprint of your structure. Standard sizes can be found in the assembly manual that will be provided for you in your kit. Set the post in place with the lines that you made and arrange them according to the post layout drawing included with the structure. Note how the top of each post has two cutouts. The flat side should be facing in. Drill into the concrete using a hammer drill with a 1/2 inch by 6 inch drill bit. Fasten the posts using 1/2 inch anchor bolts through the post brackets. Once the anchor bolts are in place, make sure posts are level. This can be adjusted by loosening or tightening the anchor bolts. First, begin by placing the large bottom post trim piece, followed by the two 6x6 top and bottom small trim pieces. And lastly, place the top square trim piece on the post. Note that if there is a notch on the square trim piece, to have that facing up. Repeat this step for each post to complete post assembly. You can now move on to the post and header assembly section of the manual. An optional method is to start the screws in the pre-drilled holes before lifting the header into place. Place one of the longer headers in position on the front posts. Attach the header to the post using 3.5 inch brown screws through all the pre-drilled holes. Leave the two outside holes empty for now. Finish fastening the header ends with 3.5 inch wood screws. Each end gets three 3.5 inch screws towed in from the top. Attach the side header to the post using 3.5 inch brown screws through all the pre-drilled holes, including the 3 pre-drilled holes towed in from the top. Locate the 8 braces. When inserting the timber locks to the braces, make sure to note that there are different sized timber locks for each slot depending on the size of your structure. This will be shown in your manual. Now that you have all of your timber locks in place, you can attach the brace to the post and the header. Make sure that your posts are plumb when attaching the braces. You are now ready to move on to the roof plate assembly. Begin installing the roof plate by lifting one of the longer sides up first. Be sure to lift the roof plate over the header assembly, being careful not to damage the header assembly. Place the roof plate on top of the header assembly. Align the corner edge of the roof plate with the corner of the header assembly as shown in the manual. Measure the inside reveal on both ends and space them equally. Maintain proper alignment at the corners. Fasten the roof plate temporarily using one 3.5 inch brown screw at each end in the location shown in the manual. This is not pre-drilled. You can now install the adjacent roof plate. Line up the corners evenly, both vertically and horizontally. Fasten the corners together using one 2-inch white screw. We recommend installing 3.5 inch brown screws as shown. Install the remaining roof plates using the previous steps. Fasten the roof plate to the header below using a 3/8 inch by 3.5 inch lag and a washer into every pre-drilled hole. Some larger pavilions will include longer lags for this step. You are now ready to move on to rafter assembly. Locate the 4 hip rafters and the ridge pole. Attach the corner rafter plates to the hip rafters with the bolt provided. Hand tighten only for now. An optional method is to start the screws in the pre-drilled holes before installing the rafters and ridge pole. Install the first double hip rafter. There are 2 left and 2 right rafters. Be sure to install them in the proper corners. Attach these with two 2.5 inch brown screws through the pre-drilled holes. Fasten the hip rafters together at the top using two 3.5-inch brown screws per side. Note that more screws will be needed for a larger pavilion. Repeat this step for the other side. Install the ridge pole in between the hip rafters. Make sure to align the top of the ridge pole with the outside edges of the hip rafters. Attach using 3.5-inch brown screws. You can now install the rafters using the marked locations on the roof plate. Fasten the rafters to the roof plates using 3.5-inch brown screws in from the sides and a 2.5-inch screw on the end. Toe in 3.5-inch brown screws at the top to fasten the rafters to the ridge pole. Fasten the hurricane brackets to the single rafters using four 1.5-inch screws per bracket. Locate the jack rafters. Align them with the marks on the roof plate. Fasten to the hip rafters using 3.5-inch brown screws and align them at the top. Continue on until all rafters are installed. Fasten the corner rafter plate to the roof plate using 1.5-inch screws into each hole. You can now tighten the bolt on the hip rafter. You have now completed the rafter assembly. You are now ready to move on to the roof sheathing and felt assembly. You can now install the T&G roof boards. Fasten the T&G roof boards with 2-inch nails. Use 2 nails per rafter. If the roof boards are at all warped or bowed, make sure to pull them down into place with pressure so that the tongue is inserted tightly into the groove. Continue working up the roof, making sure that the tongue is firmly inserted into the groove. Continue this process until all roof boards have been installed. You can now install the roofing paper. Roll the roofing paper across the roof and attach with hammer tacker staples. You are now ready to move on to the final assembly. Locate all the post trim and decorative trim pieces. Prepare the trim by starting 2.5-inch white screws in the shown locations. Install the outside corner cover piece and slide it up flush with the header. Fasten the corner cover piece to the headers using one 2.5-inch white head screw per side. Locate and install the corner trim piece. Fasten it to the header using one 2.5-inch white head screw. Slide the square trim piece up against the arch braces and fasten it using one 2.5-inch white head screw per arch brace in the center of the square trim piece. Locate the brace cover and position the angle cut on the ends as shown. Install the brace cover using 3 2.5-inch white head screws into the pre-drilled holes. Install the brace trim piece to the arch brace using one 2.5-inch white head screw centered on the brace trim piece. Attach the square trim piece to the inside corner trim piece from the bottom up. Fasten the square trim piece to the outside corner cover from the bottom up using 3 2.5-inch white head screws, one per corner. Make sure these will be covered by the top small trim piece. Slide up the top small trim piece and fasten it to the square trim piece from the bottom up using 4 2-inch white pan head screws. Use 1 screw per corner. Attach the bottom trim to the post with a 2-inch white pan head screw on 2 sides. These should be attached on the sides that do not have the anchor brackets. Attach the Country Lane logo on the inside of one of the headers. It contains the serial number for your structure. Check for any scuffs or scratches that may have occurred during shipping or installation. You can cover these with the stain that we have provided for you. Use the foam cleaning pad included in your hardware box to remove any scuffs or dirt that may have occurred during installation or shipping.